Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Happy Mother's Day to those out there. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's something that caused you some PTSD to some degree? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My house burning down 13 years ago today. I lived with my brother, his wife, and their 3 kids. My bedroom was in the attic. I awoke at about 1:30 in the morning to someone yelling fire from the first floor. It was smoky in my room, but I went downstairs and I felt the door, but it was really hot, so I turned around and went back up and climbed out on the roof. There was fire underneath. I knew the kids were in the bedroom underneath me, and I wanted to jump, but wasn't sure if the porch roof would collapse if I did. I waited, and when the fire trucks came, I just yelled for them to get the kids. It was very cold, and all the water was turning to ice, and when the firemen were going to the ladder, one slipped and fell and couldn't make it to the 2nd floor. I don't know why they didn't send another pair up. They got the ladder up to me on the roof. 2 of the 3 kids didn't make it. They would be 16 and 18 if they were alive today. I blame myself for not just going through the door to save them. I have a problem with fire and smoke. I don't like candles burning unattended. The smell just sends me to that night. It's not really bad, but enough to trigger the memory. People tell me it's not my fault, but I might have been able to save them. They might have lived. They might have grown up, but they didn't, and now I live with it. My brother got his youngest son, who was in the back of the house, just in time. Being spit on by a llama. Before the fateful day at the petting zoo with my girlfriend, I had heard that llamas spit and thought it to be a rather silly defense mechanism, but I can assure you that it's no laughing matter. I was messing around with one of the llamas and it gave a little spit at me. Got on my shirt, I laughed, brushed it away and kept on going. Big mistake. The llama spat again, but this time it was not saliva. My entire face was covered in this hot green ooze, which sticks to hair and skin like crazy, and smears all over the place if you try to wipe it away. The smell? It's like if someone took the most putrid dog breath and condensed and concentrated it into liquid form and spewed it right in your face. I threw up so many times that I lost track, and I stunk for at least 3 days. I'm terrified of llamas now. When I was 7, I was playing at the park right next to my house. A boy came up and asked to play. I didn't think much of it. Since he only looked a few years older than me, after playing tag for a bit, he grabbed me and took me behind the slide, made me sit on his lap. He put his face right next to my hair and inhaled. He told me how good I smelled. Then he had one hand down my shorts and one hand up my shirt. I tried to get away, but I wasn't strong enough. I remember just staring at the monkey bars. I thought if my dad taught me how to use them, I would have been able to get up high enough to where he couldn't reach me. Anyways, he finally stopped touching me. When my mom came out of the house to let my sister and I know it was time for dinner, he smiled at my mother and told her, "I loved playing with your daughter. She's a lot of fun." Then he took off on his bike. My mom looked at me and she could tell something was wrong. I told her what happened. The police and detectives came. My mom pressed charges and all that. Turns out he was 14 and SA'd 8 other girls. The parents of those girls didn't want to come forward, so they kept quiet. Anyway, over the years I found out that when I was dating or hooking up with someone, they would put their face next to mine, like they were about to whisper. I immediately go back in time. If someone tells me I smell good, my heart drops and I instantly want to cry. I'm 29 now. I still have to tell myself that when someone does that, they're not trying to hurt me. They're just complimenting me. However, my body will still go into fight or flight mode. Being bullied in high school, a group of kids would follow me from class to class shouting taunts at me, multiple times a day, every school day for years. If I tried to avoid them, they'd keep up with me and taunt me for trying to lose them. If I showed any emotion over being taunted like this, they'd add that to their taunts. When they didn't follow me, they'd get to my class before me. If this happened, they'd block my classroom's entrance, forcing me to push my way through them as they made fun of me. On one occasion, I saw red literally Everything took on a reddish hue, and I found myself staring at the throat of one of the bullies. I don't know what I was about to do, but just then my teacher arrived and told the bullies to leave. All this bullying took its toll on my mental state. I began to think that anyone laughing was laughing at me. The kids at the back of the school bus laughing amongst themselves while I was in the front seat, obviously laughing at me. Two girls in the hall talking and laughing amongst themselves, laughing at me. Eventually, I told the only friend I had at the time. After initially not believing how bad it was, he decided to speak with the bullies. He wasn't friends with them, but was on speaking terms with them. They didn't realize what they were doing to me and thought they were having just some harmless fun. The good news is they stopped. The bad news is that it was only a couple of months until I graduated high school, so it wasn't like I got a long stretch of high school in peace. It took me years to recover from the trauma. One morning I woke up to find my mom deceased in her bedroom. I immediately started CPR while calling 911. I eventually got to the hospital with my aunt, and that's where the doctors told me she had passed earlier that morning. I've had other events in my life that have caused PTSD to some sort, but that event really changed me, and 3 years later, I'm still really struggling with not just the PTSD, but everything else that came from it. Once in Afghanistan, there was a kid sub-double digits in age, and his clothing obviously had something underneath, but he was trying to get some of the water we were passing out. We didn't know what it was, but we were almost positive that the kid was a PBIED. So we were trying to get him to stop, but the street was crowded with other people, and he just kept coming trying to get water. People saw us yelling, so they started clearing out, and the kid, now visibly scared, started to go with them, and that's when the trigger man detonated the vest. Myself and the other soldiers were fine, but 4 civilians got seriously wounded. I was 26, married 2 years, 7 months, and woke up a strange noise at 3:30 a.m. We had 2 dogs who were short-faced, and husband snored. Figured out it was the husband, and something was very, very, very wrong. Called 911, did CPR. My mom showed up in her robe. We went to the hospital where he coded a lot, then told me brainwaves were non-existent. His mother kept telling me she felt him, and we just needed to continue to fight for him. Almost 10 hours later, the nurse took me aside and said that if he coded one more time, they weren't going to be able to do anything. And the longer that we do this, the less likely any of his organs will be viable. A year and a half later, my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and given 6 months at most. My sister told me to put her in a home and disappeared. She lasted 6 months. The last 13 days, I didn't leave her side. Slept on the floor under her bed, so if she tried to get up, she'd step on me. She thought I was my sister. She told me I sold all her stuff, and she knew. She lost her damn mind. There were some others that were less obvious, but yeah. My crew and I were trying to clean the remains of a person involved in a motorcycle crash off the road. We got the bigger pieces, leg, hand, and some of the larger pieces of bone and meat of the person bagged up, but there were still dozens of smaller pieces, the size of a finger or smaller. The police wanted to take drone footage of the crash and made us stop while they took their pictures. It was hot out, and the meat started cooking on the pavement. Our engine was parked downwind, and I ended up needing to put Vicks Vapor Rub under my nose to overpower the smell, which was not really a bad smell, but I recognized that it was part of the situation that was really getting to me. I still get flashbacks when I drive past the spot from time to time. Witnessed 2 girls get struck by lightning right as school was getting out. It was only sprinkling, and we hadn't heard any thunder, so presumably just random bad luck. One girl had some broken bones from the concussive blast, and the other had to have CPR but eventually recovered. I was riding my bike home as this occurred. I went back to school and waited about an hour, but not willing to wait 3 or 4 hours until I'd be picked up by car. I eventually had to ride home, thinking I'd be struck any moment the entire way. Now, as an adult, I'm not terrified of lightning, but I have a healthy respect for it, to say the least. My car wreck. St. Patrick's Day of 2018. Girlfriend and I were headed to my house for dinner, maybe watch some YouTube, whatever. On the highway, traffic stops in my lane, the right lane. I stop. A few seconds later, We get getting blasted from behind. Next thing I know, we're in the left lane about 3 car lengths ahead of where we were, the front of the car almost touching the barricade, my door toward traffic. Luckily, we didn't get hit again. The car that hit us had to be going 60 to 65 miles per hour. Girlfriend and I had relatively minor injuries, some head, back, neck pain. We found out later we both had herniated discs and that our spines are S-shaped now, but no broken bones or anything. I bit my lip on impact and bled a good bit, but we got incredibly lucky. The EMT in my girlfriend's ambulance told her he was surprised we were in as good condition as we were, because when they pulled up, they expected much worse. About a week or two later, I hit a nasty pothole, and the jarring of the car was so severe it sent me into a panic attack. I had to pull off the road and cry for a minute or two out of fear. I never had this kind of reaction before. I work on a special needs school bus, and whenever we hit a bump in the road, if the wheelchair lift smacks into the wall of the bus, again, the jarring of the bus and the sound of the lift hitting the wall of the bus is enough to freak me out. It used to cause mild or severe panic attacks, but I've gotten better about it lately. Still makes my heart race though. I also get exceptionally nervous when people follow me too closely, to the point I get irritated and angry. I've never been the happiest driver, but I've noticed I get angrier when I drive now than I used to, and it takes less to get me angry now, I think from fear or anxiety. I have a few myself, but one that's recent that messed me up for a couple of months. I was driving home at about 1 a.m. on a rainy night in the winter, and driving on a freeway that I drive on every day home, and it's dark, obviously, low lighting and rainy, and out of nowhere, one other car on the road, my windshield explodes, and it turns out I pulled off to the side of the road, like a mile down the street. There were a couple other cars on the side of the road. There was some knucklehead in the woods that was throwing things out of the woods into cars, and it landed on my windshield, and if it was a little lower, it could have really did damage. Like, it was like a concussive blowback. I was going like 65, so not super fast, but the speed limit of the highway. And for the next 3 months I drive on that road, I still kind of like duck a little bit when I drive by there. So it's real. It's bad. I was training and I blacked out. I woke up and no one noticed I passed out. I felt my heart beating very fast. My shirt was doing a little dance. I sat down and got through 3 bottles of water within 30 minutes. My heart was still beating fast. I went to the hospital where I sat in the waiting room for a little under an hour. My heart still beating like crazy. The doctor saw me and got me right on a gurney. I was injected with some stuff to slow the heart rate down, but that did not work. Then I was informed that a defibrillator needed to be used and that I was injected with something that would make me sleep. I was told to close my eyes, and right away I was hit with the panels from the defibrillator. It was very painful. Turns out my heart rate was over 300 BPS. Well, good news was, it set my heart back into regular beat, but the bad news was that the doctors had no idea why my heart started to beat so fast. After 3 months in the hospital, while suffering from panic attacks, it was discovered that scar tissue from an operation I had at the age of 4 caused the electrics to go haywire, and that I need a valve transplant was needed. Within a month, I was back home recovering from the operation. I eventually was put on antidepressants and a mood stabilizer. This all happened when I was 17. I'm 34 now. I'm still on the same meds. If I think of a heart beating or even see one, I get uncomfortable. Not that this is anything close to what others are sharing, but I was at a 4th of July fireworks show in 2019 when the concussion of one mortar going off knocked over the one sitting next to it as it went off. It launched straight at me and hit me in the shin, bounced up and exploded right in front of me. Almost blew my nuts off, and I suffered some serious burns along with some hearing loss. One of those moments where time slows down to a crawl so you can vividly remember every tiny detail. It could have been much, much worse. I'm glad I was the one who took the worst of the blast because there were little kids behind me, but I'll never go to another fireworks display again. My daughter got a head injury that was literally gushing blood. We rushed to the nearby ER and she got staples. The next day I was trying to read through the packet of info from the doctor, how to care for the injury and stuff, It was really hard for me to focus on it. I would get an intense emotional reaction to reading some of the phrases, particularly ones that conjured mental images of the night before. After what I thought was about 30 minutes of trying to read it, I looked at the clock and realized that it had actually been hours. Obviously, a lot of people have had significantly worse trauma and PTSD, but it was still remarkable to me. That realization of, wow, my brain is really not working right. Trying to go through my childhood with bad ADD. Every day felt like a struggle to just function normally, let alone achieve anything great. I was failing in almost every regard as a child, feeling constantly like you're in a crisis all the time, while also feeling like it's your fault for 18 years, definitely affects how your mind works. But I've been learning how to go easier on myself, in spite of the fact that I'm still affected by ADD. Arriving home to my 3-year-old, lightly bleeding child and full drunken mother. My life was always abroad, and I have much sad stories to mimic, but this one effed me up really bad. I remember how I proudly stopped smoking for 1 month, and for me, it is really almost impossible, and then I arrived to this situation and I was kicked out. She attacked me with a knife, pushed my son away, and the police told me to wait outside because of the safety of my son and me. They arrived and she screamed, insulted and attacked the 2 police officers, and they took her. Kid was crying, and they let me in, and a 3rd female officer and me attempted to make the boy stop being scared. Since the day he likes police cars and stuff, my respect stepped up in higher places for them. They even let me, not my apartment on paper, put all my and my kids' stuff together and waited 1/2 hour till I finished. Asked me even to drive us to my apartment because I lived 1 hour train away, but a friend helped. This me up really bad. I changed in every way, but sadly started smoking again. In a really weird way, because I can't smoke with my boy, I needed to wait sometimes for days. I even have had not withdrawal symptoms when I can't smoke because I am with my boy and everything seems alright. Sadly, the mother is allowed to see him twice a week with overnight, and on this day, I smoke very much. I think I'm traumatized from this event. I think this is normal, and being a single dad is and my boy even has autism, which makes everything harder. I can handle all, but not this alcoholic bad influence for him. This year started with many good successes, and I am starting tomorrow again with stopping smoking for the first time after this stupid event. It's the first time in my life that I really think life is going better, and I hope this gives me some supernatural shit energy to stop smoking. Even if I got overweight, I don't care. Smoking kills me faster, and I can't accept it with being a single dad without one single person to watch over my son if something happens. If I succeed, I think I won this game against the demons that the mother is. Good luck. My house burnt down when I was in 1st grade, lost pretty much everything. Even as an adult, I'm hyper aware of any house fire risks. I clean the whole lint system in my dryer, trap inside the dryer and tube. I don't leave anything running when I'm done. Drives my wife nuts. I think it also made me careful with my belongings. Like it took really good care of my toys because I lost all of mine. I still do that now. I try to keep all my stuff in perfect shape. I'm also pretty OCD with light switches and where things are and doors being shut when no one is home. My mum's breakdown. She is somewhat better now. She isn't angry anymore, at least not at me. She talks about it in humor and says she can't be blamed for the things she did because she wasn't well, but I don't think she knows how much trauma it left with me. I can't sleep without having the TV on because my brain will stay awake waiting to hear the door slam or glasses smash downstairs. It took around 5 years until I was able to sleep through the night again. Even longer until I could stop sleeping in my clothes, my phone in my pants in case she stormed in the room trying to take it or had to leave again. My heart still races at the memories, man. She still drinks, and it's not as bad, but the smell and the color of the wine still takes me back to being 13, crying down the phone to an ambulance, whilst she screamed downstairs about how she was killing herself. I know she was ill, but I'll never forget the fear. Also, the couple weeks I was homeless. It was one particular night I'd had to run away while she was out buying alcohol, and I knew it wouldn't be long. I had to go fast. I had to leave my younger brother crying, and the images ache my heart to this day. All I grabbed was my phone and my pills. Then I ran to the bus and cried until my ticket didn't cover the journey anymore. It was snowing, and I was lost, and I remember just sitting in the dark, freezing cold, phone about to die, and wondering if it would actually even be a bad thing if something did happen to me. I'm still not totally convinced it would have been. The first one was when I was 3, standing in the doorway watching my parents fight. My dad shoved my mom into one of those tall dressers, yelling whatever. She slapped him because she shoved her into the dresser, because if she hit her head, it could have been even worse. She has some head problems and seizures. Then my dad pushed past me, went to the car, screamed his anger out loud in the neighborhood, and got in the car and drove off. I wouldn't know if I'd say it caused me PTSD to some degree, but it's interesting. It's one of the few memories I remember from when I was under 10. My dad has improved now, I guess, but me and my whole family are kind of a mess. I got mommy and daddy issues, LMAFAO. I was 14 and Dad threatened me to break my phone and skull if I won't give him my password. I didn't, so he took a hammer and asked again with an angry voice. I gave him the password. 5 years after, I still have flashbacks, anger issues, and I'm always on guard. I have an urge to kill a random person, and I dream about it a lot. I feel dangerous for everyone around me and for myself. I've lost my appetite, and I'm very easy to jump scare, but when it happens, I pull a knife out, so I told everyone not to scare me. I don't trust myself now, and I started cutting too. Hope you're all doing well and getting the help you deserve and need. Gaslighting by my ex. He tried to make me think the flirting he was doing with a woman before we were married was harmless, and the person who told me had it all wrong. Everyone, and I mean everyone, thought my ex was the picture of a chill, nice human being. Against my better instinct, I listened to him, got married. The night before my wedding, he was at it again with an old college friend, and we fought over his not setting boundaries. Turns out years later, during our bitter divorce process, he was engaged to that very first girl he gaslit me with before our divorce was even finalized. He was renting a private plane and flying himself down to see her before he even filed. Curiously, she previously had a child out of wedlock that looked shockingly like him. They're still married. The emotional trauma done by that relationship was so bad, I failed out of medical school and for years got therapy for PTSD centered around the belief that failing out was the primary trauma. It's been 15 years, and I still have night terrors when I don't know who I am married to or where I am minutes after waking. Finally, we figured out it was the marriage, not the schooling. I never have nightmares about school, just the ex. I've had almost every kind of therapy and tried almost every kind of drug, and nothing makes the nightmares go away, and nothing helps the PTSD because I'm constantly re-traumatized by the night terrors. I got temporary benefits from lucid dreaming work, but ultimately it just gave me greater recall and greater sense of paralysis in the dream, so I stopped. People still think he's a great guy, and most of my friends ditched me to stay his friend. Rebuilding was hard, and it cost me the chance to have kids of my own, a career I care anything about, and a more stable second marriage with a better suited second partner. But at least I didn't have kids with that asshole. So, only have to see him in person once every handful of years. I went to school for journalism. I absolutely loved it. I even came out with a few national awards and an Emmy nomination. I landed a great photojournalism fellowship out of college. It was for an investigative unit. It was a small newsroom, but producing some pretty great work. I worked alongside a reporter for months on a story about refugee students in the city. I became particularly close with a Syrian family since I had to photograph their lives. Family dinners, soccer games, first day of school, etc. We wrapped the story and I remained in touch with the oldest daughter. She was incredibly sweet with big ambitions of being a doctor someday. She even showed me her journal entries from when she was a refugee camp. Her mother really fought to get the family into the United States to finish their education. She had an older brother, and days after the story came out, the FBI released a report that he, the brother, planned to attack a part of the city. It would have left 200 to 300 people dead if his plan wasn't thwarted. According to the report, they just had begun investigating him right when we met. He was obviously arrested. I'm not sure what happened to the rest of the family. The last interaction I had was one of the older brothers asking me for photos of him playing soccer with teams, days after his brother was arrested. I felt like I failed as a journalist. I felt betrayed. For months I attended therapy, couldn't go to loud places or do normal tasks. I moved on from journalism not long after. I'm now happily working as a videographer for a major university. I miss the work, but not the trauma. A few months ago, I saw my dad fall backwards off of a step and hit his head really hard. His eyes were open but blank, and he wasn't responding at all. I was several feet away with stuff in between us, and as I was calling his name and trying to get to him, I could just see those open, lifeless eyes, and I kept thinking, is he dead? Please don't be dead. Please don't be dead. He had a bad concussion, but is okay now. I still flash back to it at the weirdest times, and have a hard time thinking about it. Weirdly, it took like 6 to 8 hours for me to even remember those few minutes. I remembered what came before and after, him coming to, slurred speech, etc., but it's like my mind protected me from the part for a while. I've been through some hard, scary, life-altering things in my life, but that was a different kind of fear. It was just traumatic. The Virginia Tech shooting of 2007. I was only a high school senior at the time of the shooting, but I started going to school at Vatech the following semester and heard many stories about it. On my very first class, a professor explained that a few weeks before the shooting happened, a random student walked in the classroom halfway through a lecture, looked around, and walked back out. Maybe it was a mistake, and the kid got the wrong room. Professor said on the night of the shooting, and the news showed a picture of the shooter, it was the same kid who walked into his classroom, maybe scoping the place out. For years after, I always got a dreadful feeling when anybody walked in a classroom unexpectedly, or even when I started working and people did that in meeting rooms. I don't know if I could appropriately call it PTSD since I've only talked to a therapist twice about it and haven't delved too deep into it, but it does feel a lot like I imagined it, so I would just go with it for the sake of the post. Short version is that because of an unfortunate combination of my lack of social intelligence and her lack of communication skills, a deep friendship with unrequited romantic feelings I later realized I had come to unhealthily relied on abruptly ended in a way that felt like a perfect confirmation of my worst fears. It's been a few years, but I still struggle with the fear of dating, terrible self-doubt, and there are some things I used to love that also happened to be a part of that friendship that I haven't been able to touch since. I also think I've developed social anxiety, and I feel sick to my stomach with confrontation, and when I think I've upset someone, I've been considering going back to therapy. Probably should, to be honest. The event that caused me PTSD to a degree was our first cat. First of all, it hated being touched, but it liked being in the same room. Liked to play fetch, it was really smart, but every once in a while his ears would go back, his eyes would get all glossy and big, and he would attack. Like he's on the ground and I'm standing, and he would jump to go after my face. I have a 1.5-inch scar on the top of my right hand because one time he attacked and his tooth scratched me as I pushed him away. We all started carrying a blanket around so that if he got into his attack mode, we could quickly cover him with a blanket and get away. I don't trust cats anymore, and worry that any slightly wrong move will mean that it's going to go feral on me. This particular incident was about 15 years ago. Now we have an outdoor cat, and he seems nice, but I can't help but be worried every time he's around that he might just attack. Okay, so my grandpa, now passed, is going to sound like a villain in this story, but trust me, he was a really nice guy, and he was just being funny and trying to get me a little less scared of dogs because he knew I'd like them if I wasn't such a wimp, which I was. When I was like 5 or 6, I would go to my grandpa and grandma's house. They had a sweet and playful little dog named Roscoe, who really loved it when we came there, but I thought otherwise. My grandpa would always have him run around with me, but I always got scared because my mindset was dog plus running at me equals trying to eat me or kill me, although he just wanted to play. I never gave Roscoe a chance for like 2 years, and in that time, I was always scared of dogs that ran anywhere at all or even barked or came near me, but eventually we were pals. Roscoe ran away a while after that. The last car accident I was in, November 5th, 2016. I was in front of a passenger seat. We were at Dix Toledo Highway in Birch Run in Michigan. We were going to see my sister at some work event, my mom, dad, and I. There was a ton of traffic on the road. We couldn't tell why no one was moving, or barely, so when the next lane on the right opened up to a 2-lane road, we got over and was getting up to speed. We were going about 35-ish, I think, and the limit on the road was 45, I think. When we got to the intersection, this woman, also in a van, turned in front of us. Found out that her in the main lane was stopped at the green light, waving her to turn. You do not do that. You do that, you end up how we did, or worse, since we weren't even at the speed limit. It was a T-bone accident. By the time both vehicles came to rest, we were both facing a completely different direction, both to the right. I was lucky nothing got broken. My dad should have gotten a concussion, and my mom only got some bad bruises from the seatbelt, and for the love of God, people, wear your seatbelt. They're the only reason I've survived multiple accidents, and I'm not even 19 yet. The frame between the windshield and my passenger door was bent. The windshield and my window were cracked. Everything under the hood was pushed back a good foot or more, and I could barely get the door open so I could get up. It wasn't until 10th grade that I realized this accident caused me PTSD, because my history teacher, for whatever reason, decided to show the class a video on drinking and driving. He didn't tell us any information about the video we were going to watch beforehand, just that it's emotional, that's it. So, being a real recording of a group of teens out drinking and driving on prom night. Of course, the camera position was in the front passenger seat, and basically played out the exact same way it did in that last accident. Caused a panic attack in class. I was shaking and couldn't say anything. I was freaking out so bad. Got home and just cried. After that day, I was able to get a blue pass, so if something happens in class that triggers a panic attack for me, I could leave. And it was actually the assistant principal who said that the panic attack was from PTSD, since he had a similar thing happen outside school. With my family's luck, we get into car accidents about every 2 years, and bad enough for an ambulance to be called most of the time, but only when all 3 of us are in the vehicle. It's been 5 years, and I don't know when the next accident's going to happen, but I'm convinced that because it's been so long, that the next one I'm in, we won't be walking away like I had before.